Streaming the show. And welcome to the show. This is Beyond the Pendulum. We're back from a couple week hiatus. I was not by choice. Uh, Without getting into it, it's revolving around some money issues that have popped up lately, and to be honest, they've kind of creeped up faster than I could say. You know what? But to just go on the top, we had some real major developments. We had Colonel Nell or Colonel Nell, who was the he was when Grush came out. David Grush came out, telling us about the whole story about last year. Colonel Nell did back up his not his story, but was in agreement with what Grush was saying. And this guy is not a nobody, and was developing like AI tools for the army, and he's pretty much a savant, and he did drop some bombs at the SALT conference. Unfortunately, I didn't watch it as everybody else was doing on Twitter or X or YouTube. I'd watched about the highlights, and then I had listened to like Andy on that UFO podcast, listened over the highlights. But where there's some drops, just some bombs dropped, and he literally told the audience that you need to get it out of your heads that this is a real this is not some foo-foo stuff. This is real, and this is a real phenomenon, and it really is happening. And he was just dropping bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. And keep in mind, the SALT conference is not a UFO conference. It is a technology conference or not necessarily, but mainly is where people are, trying to get funding from major investors. And that was a major bomb that had been dropped. And quite frankly, there was some other stuff that happened. I guess everybody was talking about an email leak that had happened in relation, because a lot of people had questioned, Lou Elizondo, and whether he was actually a leader of a group called ATIP. And there was a lot of hoo-ha along the lines of, whether he was telling the truth or not. And there was a leak of his emails, that the DOD said didn't exist or were destroyed. I can't remember. And it did have the ATIP in the leaked email, and we did see all of it. But the DOD then backed up and said that the emails were not destroyed, and showed the email with ATIP redacted, which to the average person would be like, so what? But the Air Force is trying to, and the DOD are trying to cover their tracks. But, when we have people on the inside leaking stuff, it makes it hard for them to cover their tracks as fast as they're having to, and like this week we had, Jason Sands come out on an X space, and which was like, I guess, some guy. I guess I'm not really onto the Spaces type podcast, mainly because it's non-traditional, and for me it's a little too informal. But that's just me. But apparently a whistleblower named Jason Sands, who was working some quite a few special access programs, had basically spilled the beans, who was an insider, who was a first hand experiencer, and on the inside. But we do know about how he is a first-hand experiencer, and yes, he was in the program when in the 90s. Yes, we have done retrieval. Hands down, we have done crash retrievals. His story does get a little weird. In a nutshell, the story goes that he was given instructions to go to point A to point B, on a range, I believe. I'm not sure which base, but I believe it's somewhere near Area 51, somewhere in the Nevada desert. And he was told not to stop and talk to anybody. And he disobeyed his order. He thought that he had saw a soldier. He saw somebody in BDUs. He thought it was a person, but he had like bluish kind of skin. And when he turned around, he realized it was not a human. And the alien talked to him, and he felt concerned. He looked kind of cold, so he gave him his jacket. And because Jason thought that the alien was cold, so he gave him a jacket. And he goes, what do you want? What do you need? Do you need food? What do you got? And the alien said, do you have any? I shit you not. This is real. He goes, do you have any tools to fix my ship? I am not joking. And then he goes, well, there's Area 51 up there. You can go up there. I'm pretty sure they got some tools, and keep in mind that on this base or this area, there was reported sightings for weeks. His ship, and he doesn't know why they weren't trying to. Apparently, his ship was causing trouble on the base, and he is not affiliated with the base, and he told the Jason in telepathy. He says, "No, I'm not going to that place. Those people kill aliens. I'm not going there. Do you know anybody that can help me fix my ship?" and kind of like like a teenager just broke his car. He goes, well, there's a metallurgy lab, and that's where things get fuzzy. He doesn't remember much after that, but the next thing he remembers consciously was finishing his sandwich. So there was quite a bit of can you hear me? Elmo? Okay. Sorry. Yeah. This is pretty weird. So a good couple hours had gone by, and I don't think he was the only one on this in this Jeep that was driving across the range. Apparently there was two other people, and he does remember a little bit of what happened. He did remember that the alien was able to make the two people in the car act like they were zombies, and they drove off to somewhere, to I think a school, and then he doesn't remember anything else after that. I have heard of this technology that they have used on people, and it's not, to the average listener, it's not a well-known thing out of the fringe, but apparently these aliens have some sort of tech, and it's like a it's not a telepathy that they're using. I think the telepathy in the zombie thing, but the forgetting part, I've heard it used a couple of times, but you're gonna have to dig back into UFO lore. It's like a wand, a glowing wand kind of thing, and they put it over your head, and it does something to you neurologically. And I suspect it's some kind of not like the Men in Black thing, but it probably does some kind of pulse that fucks around with your memory. I would suspect probably bio something working on some sort of field to uh, cause amnesia. That's he did see this guy's ship, which was an atypical. I think it was a disc or something, and it was a pewter colored. And he has been involved in a lot of other SAPs, and he's not gonna divulge much more. This guy talked for about 6 hours, and most of the people were questioning whether who he says he was. But Jason Sands, according to other people who did work with him, have come forward and or other people have come forward and vouched for this. This guy really is high up there in the intelligence field, and they had offered him to do the crash retrievals, but he wasn't in. He didn't want to do it because they said there was a lot of blood and guts involved, and particularly he didn't. He wasn't too fond of seeing bloody bodies, alien bodies all over the place. But yeah, he literally talked to an alien around Area 51, trying to fix his UFO. It's believable too. Yeah, yeah. But there's some people who don't believe this story. Personally, I'm giving this one more. I'm from what I heard from Jason Sands. I do. I don't know. It's too it's too weird to not be true. It's usually like I've always said in the like I've always said this. If it's too ridiculous, it's probably ridiculous. But if it's really really weird, if it's weird, it's probably real. You know. Oh, the Dulce battle. It's, well, I've heard that there's a theory that there is underground bases, these underground alien bases all over the place, and they're automated. AI manufacture the ships right there on the spot, and even grow the grays for some sort of research mission, some long term research mission. And a lot of these facilities are on the bottom of the ocean or whatever, and they kind of make the technology and the tools as they need it. Kind of like 3D printers as we have, but they're working with metamaterials. I've That theory is a little odd, but not too weird. But there. Yeah, that seems. It would make sense that if they did have some sort of repair stations in really odd places, because they know human technology can't get to these places, you know? Yeah, I actually didn't think about that far. Yeah, you might be right there. Yeah. Um, yeah, there was a lot some people don't a lot of people in the, I'm not going to lie, a lot of people in the UFO community don't believe Jason Sands. I Me personally, I really do. I really, really do. Because a lot of people in the UFO community want nuts and bolts, you know, it's this way, that way, or the highway. And I've always said this, and this is what oh, even in my real life, even all my weird experiences. If it's weird, really, really, really weird, not ridiculous. If it's weird, it's probably true. You know, you know. Well, I think the cattle mutilation is kind of self-explanatory. It's they're eating certain parts of the animals for food. Why pay for it? Well, you can steal it. Yeah. Apparently, they don't. Well, because yeah. Oh, and I guess last week, Sean Kirkpatrick got caught lying. Um, you know how he said he's never been interested in UFOs? Well, apparently in 2017, when Brandon Fugel had bought Skinwalker Ranch and nobody really knew who he was, um, there was a UFO conference about Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Sponsored by Brandon Fugel, who nobody knew who was the owner at this point. Sean Kirkpatrick was a speaker telling about UFOs are real. You can't make this shit up, dude. And there's a picture of him speaking at the fucking conference, at a conference he said he wasn't at. This is the ex leader of Arrow, though, the head of Project Blue Book or the Blue Book 2.0. Yeah, and then he backs it up and said he was there for a third party. And then I'm like, you were the fucking speaker. And this came out on accident because Sean Kirkpatrick was, I think he's a fucking pawn, but he went on the head skeptic show, like on Stephen Green Street, who I think is a notorious cokehead, right? And I know, how cokeheads, like they'll poke and poke and poke and poke. Well, that's what he did, and he kept on poking and poking and poking and poking and poking about this one thing. He keeps on diverting his questions around. and then during the live stream he looks and finds a picture of this guy at a fucking UFO conference at the one he said he wasn't at. And then the owner of the Skinwalker Ranch produced the picture. You know, it's not only that. These are the gatekeepers. these are the fucking UFO gatekeepers. Well, oh my god. Yeah. He didn't think anybody took a picture of it. What was it when they were trying to, when the Air Force in the 1990s tried to say on CNN that the people remembering were suffering from time compression? They're remembering stuff from the 1950s, not the 1940s. Yeah, yeah. The Air Force knows what the fuck is going on. So does the Navy. Actually, believe it or not, USOs are more common than UFOs. The underwater ones. Yeah, yeah. Well, if Operation Serpo, if Project Serpo was true, I'm not sure if you know that far back into like the '80s UFO lore, but if Project Serpo was right, they've been using this planet. They've been using this planet as like a gas station for like forever, like like a pit stop place. But yeah, Project Serpo seems to be a lot of people don't believe it, but it does line up with the Holloman Air Force Base story, and you've heard of Project Serpo, right? Operation Serpo, where we traded. It's the extension story of Area 51 of the Roswell. So apparently, in the lore, one of them had survived, and we called them EBEs or whatever, extra something biological entity, and they had they couldn't communicate with us, but we had to teach them English, and they wanted to. They said that they were looking at the parts, and they said that their communicator was the only way that they could phone to get reinforcements to come pick them up, and they did so for many many years, and then at some point the alien died, and but the army kept on sending out using this communicator, and eventually his home race ended up communicating, but they wanted the bodies back. The U.S. Army said, "You can have the body back, but you need to give us something in return." And they said no, but we can do something else where we will give you some of our technology, and four of your guys or five of your guys can come onto our planet as ambassadors for 10 years and come back. But it would be a long journey because their planet is 40 light years away, somewhere in the Zeta Reticuli. And they're using some sort of wormhole technology or something like that. But even with the wormhole, it still takes 10 months to traverse through this to their planet. And one of the guy ends up dying on the way there. There's some scuffles, and he learns a lot about their planet. Their planet has like high. Eventually, the end. Another guy dies because apparently they have higher levels of ultraviolet radiation, and most of the guys, two of the guys end up staying. One comes back, and the guy came back died of cancer and whatever. And I don't know how this information was leaked, but either way, it's a good story. But I don't. There's nothing to really factually back it up. Well, it's out there, and like I was saying, there's more to the Havana syndrome than we know. According to I was listening to Mika Hank's podcast, and apparently we're dealing with direct energy weapons, probably microwaves, but it's being pulsed at, we're talking like terawatts, and here's where we can say without a doubt that we're probably dealing with some sort of alien metamaterial, because they're saying that this thing is probably small, portable, and able to handle massive amounts of power, and not harm the user. So we are dealing with semi-modern technology using parts of alien technology, using some metamaterials. That's why whenever the Havana syndrome um, comes up in serious articles, it gets poo-pooed much later, because there's a scary implication that we are fighting a war using alien tech, or jammed into some modern tech that we have. But that's a scary implication. Oh yeah, Holloman Air Force Base. Yeah, that was the same event. Yeah, same event. Yeah, yeah, same event. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think there was an agreement that they could that we can abduct our people and shit. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm sorry, the debunkers say that it is a '60s era fighter jet that's landing in that video that came out in a documentary. I'm sorry, like no, that's a UFO. I'm sorry. Part of that footage came out, right? They came out a document. Yeah, but that documentary it came out with was sponsored by the CIA, where they were supposed to do disclosure through a movie, which was something the CIA would do. Speaking of which, CIA. You remember Project Stargate, right? With the psychic spies. Yeah, Project Stargate. Yeah. Well, the Russians actually had their own version using. So there was a Russian astronomer and slash physicist named Kozyrev, who was like the Russian Nikolai Tesla, roughly around the same time period. This guy was ahead of his time, and you're not gonna find. He's not a well-known name on this side of the world because most of his work was classified by the Russian state during the Cold War, and he had a lot of weird ideas. And this is where you start to like question things because like when I heard this guy's story, it made a lot of sense, and especially into the to the stuff that even I like. It might explain ghosts or whatever, because this I've heard this theory multiple times. So Koryev, Kozy, I can't never say name is right. Kozyrev or whatever, had invented like so domed mirrors can do everything from bouncing mirrors, bouncing particles, light. It can use as a weapon. Can be used for astronomy and mirrors. And we'll get to his mirrors, but when he had this theory that stars specifically create torsion fields in in space, and somehow he had invented a way of detecting torsion fields at the turn of the century, and he was like, okay, and he pointed it at a star, and he was like, okay, and he detected a torsion field. So there is some bending and twisting of space around a large object. Okay, that's not super weird. That's something you probably would expect on some scale. But when he tried to he says, okay, well, this is 40 light years away. I'm going to look where it should be at this point. And he was detecting a torsion field where it should be at its present point. So how could he detect a torsion field in two different places at the same time? And then he started getting into this fundamental thinking. He's like, and this is some basis of some quantum physics kind of stuff. But he is saying that the past, present, and the future might all be all existing at the same time, but you're flowing with the river, but you can still detect phantoms or evidence of the past being played out, which might explain ghosts. But that's not the weirder stuff. That's really not some of the weirder stuff. This is only the tip of the iceberg. This guy was really into some quantum physics stuffs, but he he thought that, you know, I forget how he comes up with it, but there was a device that he had made where it was a sheet aluminum, with his mirrors that he had developed, and it was designed to bend space time around it and able to. And he spent some time inside of this device that he had made, thinking that he could isolate the body from exterior frequencies or whatever, so that the body could enhance its telekinesis. And he, along the way, I'm saying the story wrong, but he found out that apparently this was a very good device that could be used to focus telekinetic powers, see into the future. And these experiments went on, didn't happen while he was alive. There were two people who took up his stuff out of boredom in Siberia, repeated his experiments for decades, so much so that the KGB, or the at the time, had classified all of his stuff, and were doing Project Stargate experiments on the East Coast, or in Russia, and were having better results than the United States Army was, and so much so that the CIA was even playing around with this stuff. And believe, I shit you not, there's a whole book you can read on it. It's called Cosmic Consciousness, and it's translated into English. And you can see they had there were some things that we had found out, that the same thing that that Colonel Ed Gain, or Ed Dames from the Project Stargate had said. The same conclusions, that when there's there's high ions in the atmosphere, that the telekinetics are more accurate. And they did one experiment where they had one psychic in this device, and he was focusing on several different images, and they would go, draw image one, 5,000 people, blah, 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 blah. 90% accuracy with over 100 different objects. Okay, you do this on another day where there is not higher ions in the atmosphere, you're getting for 30 to 40% accuracy. So we might be learning. There was like all sorts of weird stuff. So like as they're doing these experiments, there was a lot of paranormal stuff going on. People were seeing UFOs, phantom lights, orbs, and the Western world doesn't know much of this because none of it's translated into English. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, but I was surprised that you talk to anybody in this field and they know about remote viewing, but they never heard about the Russian program, which actually stare at goats. Yeah, this exper yeah this yeah this, yeah this in this device was like remote viewing on steroids, where if you had a talented psychic. Actually, they said kids. They were actually trying to get Siberian kids whose parents were shamans. Were often better at this, and they were able to have out of body experience and project themselves wherever they wanted to be. Talk to beings who weren't there. The sky was the limit. Anything that you could think of in telekinesis or psychic abilities was happening within this device. Something about the device, as I have said before, I'm not explaining it right, enhances the person's innate abilities. And this we're only talking about specific sheets of aluminum. Yeah, yeah. Or would you? Yeah. Or like we saw in what's it called? In the Ukraine war, remember they supposedly shot down a UFO. You saw that video, right? With the Ukraine war. Yeah, yeah. Oh man, yeah, I'm surprised the other guy's not in the chat that was commenting on what the topics we were supposed to talk about. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was talking about the U.S. Patent Secrecy Act. So apparently, if you develop something that is more than 80% efficient in energy, or if it's dangerous, the patent office will classify your patent, and the only person you can sell it to, the technology to, is the United States government. So there might be tons and tons and tons of tech that could possibly revolutionize the world, and I'm almost positive it exists out there. There was a thing called a VT. Anyway, so It's called a vacuum triode or something. Some guy named John Sweeney or Ken Sweeney had developed a device that was like a basically a vacuum tube that was somewhat of a triode, and I'm not sure. I haven't seen the schematics. And was a the more stuff you plugged into it, the more power it would put out. Apparently, you needed to only put like a milliwatt in or whatever, and you would get as much watts as you wanted out. And people didn't understand how this worked, and apparently, he this guy was shot too, but he had the theory that it was using on some kind of 0 point field where he was taking energy from the inert, basically the ether, the whatever space is. And this is not the first time I've heard these kind of weird stories where people come up with these devices that shouldn't work, and then end up dead, over and over and over again. Yeah, he's not the only guy. I mean, I've heard over a dozen people coming up with the same thing. They all end up dead. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. It's starting to get weird out there too. Like real, yeah, weird out there. Like like everything's getting more expensive. People are losing their shit. Nobody really cares about who's the fucking president anymore. It's getting weird out there. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing to peel back. Yeah. Nobody. No. They need to. Well, what they need to do is they need to just put the hammer down like they did in Ohio, where the Ohio is, if they know that you're not, and if you're buying a house for an investment and you're not actually living in it, you need to. They're going to double your tax rate on that house or that property, and that's what I think the government needs to do. Somebody needs to pull the hammer down on. There are five basic human needs that every human needs, and one of them is it food, shelter, sex, happiness, or whatever. And basically, you can't. These are like the basic things that every human needs, but every person doesn't have these things, and yet there is enough to go around. And the people that are keeping the housing out of reach are billionaires and millionaires. It's it's not the market. It's the people who there are people that have bought houses for the purpose of investing, not to live in them. Yeah, it's getting scary. It's getting scary out there, especially when the average Joe is not making ends meet. Yeah, yeah, wages went up. Nope, nope. Hi. Yeah, my dad was saying the exact same thing. You know, two people, you can't do it on one income anymore. Yeah, no, they won't even approve you for a house if you're not making $150,000 a year. Yeah, yeah. Even with 20% down, you're still paying $6,000 a month before utilities and mortgage payments. Yeah, that's going 20% down on a $700,000 house. If you're lucky to find one that cheap. Oh yeah, and now the Federal Reserve is not going to lower interest rates anytime this year. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't wanna talk doom and gloom, but all those stories I thought were poppycock about like the NWO and all that shit, and I thought it was all bullshit until I see direct market manipulation trying to trash the economy. And it's not the people on the bottom that's doing it, it's the big players on top. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and with yeah. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Oh, but anyway, I gotta call it at this point. Yeah. Hold on. And hold on, let me stop the stream.